stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everyone this evening. Mr. Ellswick will not be with us this evening. He's not feeling well. Everything will be okay. I would ask for approval of the agenda with an addendum. It's in your bill. I have a motion. Oh, sorry. Somebody call attendance, please.
Absolutely. Ms. Klein?
Present.
Mr. Fagan?
Here.
Mrs. Golden?
Here.
Mrs. Weber?
Here.
And Mr. Ellswick is absent.
Now, I have a motion to approve the agenda with an addendum of the addition of the resignation of Senior Gill.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Ms. Cartwright, could you call the vote, please?
Yes. Mrs. Golden?
Yes.
Ms. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Fagan?
Yes.
Mrs. Weber?
Yes. All right, our agenda carries with the addendum. And Superintendent Jefferson, we have our every student, every champion.
Madam President, members of the board, I would like to, at this moment, to introduce our Director of Pupil Services, Special Education, Mr. Jonathan Burris. Mr. Burris, could you please introduce your champion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Jefferson. If you just give me one moment here, I just have a quick presentation. If I could figure out how to simply present. Okay, can you see the presentation?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. Madam President, members of the board, it's my distinct honor tonight to once again present the Every Student Everyday Champion. This month's champion is Sonia Clever. She is an intervention specialist at Mansfield Senior High. She serves in our cross-categorical low incidence classroom, and she is also a registered behavior technician, or an RBT, and she's studying to become a board certified behavior analyst. And so we're looking forward to that journey. She's a great advocate for students, and she's a very strong instructional leader. I have a couple of quotes from some of the folks that she works with. Principal Harris says, "Wow, Sonia is a valuable leader, a valuable teacher at Mansfield Senior High. She continues to work hard for her students, and she's committed to the success of her students. She is a great advocate for children with special needs, and she's truly a champion for students." Dr. Reynolds always tends to be a little bit longer-winded. Mrs. Sonia Clever exemplifies the values of the Mansfield City School District. She truly prioritizes the students' needs every day. In addition to investing countless hours outside of the school day to learn all that she can specific to her students, she also has committed herself to high learning to target implementing research-based interventions grounded in dimensions of ABA. She acknowledges that in addition to academic support, her students need behavioral and social emotional support, and she was eager to pilot the social emotional curriculum this year and has been pivotal in the process for the district to adopt that curriculum, which the board did last month. Ms. Clever genuinely cares about each of her students and provides for their individual needs across the curriculum. She maintains positivity that radiates to her students on a daily basis and models true dedication for her colleagues. So I know Mrs. Clever has a couple of students that she'd like to honor, and I'd like to turn it over to her to honor her students. And if she has anything else that she'd like to say, she may do so as well. Mrs. Clever?
All right, I would like to thank you, Mr. Burris, and the special education team and the board for this honor and recognition. The two students that I chose tonight to be honored are Javon and Alexis. Javon Jones is a freshman who has come to high school and has grown as a leader in the classroom. He works hard to include his peers in his projects. Alexis Otterbacher is a student that I have had for the last 2 years. Since her return from TDA, she has been such a positive influence to her peers. She helps students every day with tasks they are struggling with. Both of these students stand out every day for their ability to lead and their compassion for helping others. Thank you.
Great, Mrs. Clever. And I think I see Alexis on. Alexis, are you there?
Yeah.
Hi, Alexis. Would you like to say anything to Mrs. Clever or to the board?
Thank you very much. I'm just really nervous. Oh, geez.
Well, that's okay, sweetie. I know it's a little bit nerve-wracking getting on in front of all these folks,
Yeah.
but we very much appreciate that you're here. And is Javon here too?
I want to say I heard him earlier. Javon, are you on?
He's there. I think his mic is muted.
Oh, there he is. Unmute yourself, Javon.
Okay, well, that's okay. We can see you. Can you wave to us? All right, well, thank you so much. And members of the board, I turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Ms. Clever, and your students, and for everything that they're doing for their peers. And again, thank you all very much for doing a wonderful job and being nominated for this. Thank you. Anyone else?
Congratulations, everyone.
Good job.
Thanks.
Stop.
You're embarrassing me, mother. Okay.
Well, there's our Alexis. We hear her now. So I want you to know that Mrs. Clever and Alexis and Javon, you guys are welcome to stay on. But if you'd prefer to exit, you can do so now. You can just hit that leave button, and your job is done. And once again, Mr. Jefferson, thank you for the opportunity. And that concludes our presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Congratulations also. We appreciate all of the service to the Mansfield City Schools, and we appreciate the work that you and your students have contributed through this unprecedented school year. So thank you very much. Madam President, members of the board, as we move on to our other presentations, at this next presentation, Mr. Robert Booth, who is our district facilities manager, will have a presentation by Core Management, who is a COVID third-party compliance audit. Mr. Booth?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Good evening, board, superintendent, treasurer. I know I talked to you back in the fall about when we had the third-party assessment. They're available tonight to do a short presentation with you and talk about where we're at and how we're going to move forward. And I'll turn it over to, I think, Carl or Tony Sr. I see him up in the corner. And then afterwards, any questions, let me know.
Thank you.
Well, sure. Thanks for having us. I really appreciate it. Actually, Anthony's going to be the lead on our presentation tonight.
All right, thanks, Tony Sr. Hi, everybody. Anthony Maoni with CORE. Myself and Tony Sr. are very pleased to be here and feel honored to be part of your board meeting tonight. And thank you, Robert, and thank you for everyone that invited us. What we're going to do tonight is spend just about 8 to 10 minutes going through our high-level presentation with you all and save some time at the end of that for any Q&A you'd like. We also have some of my team members on, Van, Chris, Robin, and Carl, who helped dig into the project and do a lot of the detailed work. So we may have them help chime in and answer some questions. And I thank them for joining. I'm going to share my screen and lead us through just a brief presentation of the findings and recommendations. And then, as I said, we can address any of your questions. Feel free to post questions in the chat as we go. That's a good way to kind of document them and make sure you don't forget what you wanted to say. So that you're welcome to do that if it helps. Let me just confirm that you can see my screen. Yes. Robert, can you nod? Okay, great. So again, thank you, everybody. My name is Anthony Maoni. I'll be the main presenter tonight. And what we're going to be doing is going through the following agenda. We're going to briefly touch on the objectives of the project. I'm going to give an overview of our company just to give you a better sense of who we are and why we were selected to partner with your district for this important project. We're going to talk about the process, the findings, some comparisons with other K-12 schools and benchmarks, and then we'll wrap up with some program improvement options. So as far as the objectives of the project go, what we were asked to do is actually one of our most popular kind of consistent projects that we've performed over the last couple decades. It's what we call a custodial assessment. And what an assessment entails is evaluating a K-12 custodial program and essentially performing a best practices gap analysis. So we take a look at the program from all the different angles, including staffing, quality, cost, training, stakeholder feedback, etc. And we help you understand where you are today, what your goals are in terms of where you want to get to in the future, and then how to bridge that gap, and maybe some areas that you're already achieving kind of that best practice level. So we're going to just take a moment and talk about our team and just kind of our approach, and then get into the project details. So again, our company, CORE, we have been doing this since 1995. We specialize with K-12 school districts. We've worked with hundreds of schools over the years. In total, we've benchmarked and assessed about 2 billion square feet. And we're an independent group of consultants and cleaning experts that we don't perform any cleaning services ourselves or manage the services or sell supplies. We're only in the business of partnering with schools to help them objectively assess their programs. As far as what our process looked like, pretty typical process for these kind of projects. What we do in the beginning is we collect information. So we worked with Robert and the district to look at your current cleaning scope of work and expectation levels, your current staffing levels, building drawings, square footage, and we assess all of that. And then we performed a site visit. During that site visit, we did some quality inspecting and met with some stakeholders. We also did some virtual stakeholder interviews and questionnaires that we're going to look at. And then we wrapped up the project by doing this detailed middle phase here, measuring the square footage and doing a staffing assessment. And we'll look at the results of that in a moment. One lens by which you can look at a custodial program is what's called the APA levels of cleanliness. Don't feel like you need to memorize this or even learn the details at this moment, but just realize that there's there's 5 levels of cleanliness that are pretty popular in terms of how school districts think about their cleaning program. And most schools strive for level 2. One would be perfectly clean, perfectly spotless. Level 5 is very dirty. A good practical level that is the goal of most programs is level 2. And as we get into this, we're going to show you how you stack up in terms of the APA levels of cleanliness. So now we're going to get into the findings, and we're going to look at the current program and then what our analysis suggests in terms of how that current program measures against the benchmarks. The current custodial program as it looks today, if I were to describe your overall APA goal, it's to try to achieve an APA cleanliness level of 2.5. That's the most common goal. It's like I said, kind of the most popular intersection of quality, cost, and staffing. Some other key takeaways from this slide are just that your current staffing, if all the positions were filled, you'd be at about 33 FTE, which includes 7 head custodians. And the current net cleanable square footage, based on the detailed measurements and takeoffs we did, is a little over 800,000 square feet, 823,000. We were fortunate, even during these, the time of COVID, where we were trying to limit our on-site time, to still be able to do some stakeholder interviews. We did a lot of them remotely as much as we could. And we also sent out an electronic questionnaire to the principals to be completed to get your feedback on the current custodial program. The responses themselves are kept anonymous, but we use that collective data to try to assess how people feel about the program today and how they would rate it on kind of a 1 through 10 scale in a number of different categories. If I move on here, to summarize what we learned, most of the stakeholders we interviewed commented on the good work ethic and the willingness of the custodians to help with special requests. So kind of the overall work ethic and professionalism was very much appreciated and commented on. There were some concerns regarding the floor finishing, floor waxing as being kind of one thing to look at in terms of needing improvement based on their opinion. But they also cited the pandemic as a reason why the team may have not been able to do as much floor finishing as they maybe would have in a typical year. Principals in the older buildings, and this is a very common thing we hear, that in older buildings, it's sometimes hard to maintain a level of cleanliness that looks and feels clean, and that's only because of the building's age and the finishes. Sometimes there can be flooring or restroom finishes that no matter how much you clean them, they'll never look new and never look shiny. And so some principals understood that and noted that the custodians do best job they can maintaining those items, but that no matter how hard they work, they probably will never look back to kind of a new state. Also, we noted that there isn't a district-wide standard quality assurance process. What that would look like would be the principals kind of on a regular basis walking with the head custodian or other custodians to do quality assessments of their spaces. And that's an area that can use improvement in terms of formalizing that continuous quality program. These next couple slides, we're going to get into staffing and quality. And I know I have about just a few minutes left with the presentation, so we'll get through these here. This slide is going to be, depending on where you're sitting, if you're looking at a big screen, it might be a little hard to read, but what this is showing is that we used our software to load the square footage and your cleaning scope of work against common accepted production rates for cleaning, like 10 minutes for vacuuming 1,000 square feet, 2.75 minutes for cleaning a bathroom. And we were able to calculate that for your base cleaning program, based on kind of normal APA 2 standards, you would need a little under 28 FTE to do all of the routine and periodic cleaning tasks. And that does not include the 7 floaters that you currently have above and beyond the base cleaning. So if you add the base cleaning workload that we did based on the square footage and our visit, combined with the floaters, it adds up to just under 35 FTE as what would be kind of the suggested or benchmark level of staffing. Now, we also did a version of that adds disinfecting. So we looked at your disinfecting standards during the times of COVID-19. And if we workloaded the disinfecting of all the common touch points, it adds a number of basically about 8 additional FTE to that total. So instead of 34.69, adding the disinfecting brings the total to 42.5. And again, that includes the 7 floaters that you have today. Now, currently you have 33 custodians, including those 7 floaters. But my understanding is that right now there are 5 vacant positions. So even though it shows 33 at kind of an org chart level, the true number is 28 in terms of net vacancies. That's an important slide. It just kind of summarizes our staffing findings compared to the current with the disinfecting. And if you look at it on a productivity chart, your current, and this is compared to other districts we've worked with very recently, your current staffing puts you at between 31 and 32,000 square feet per FTE, not counting the floaters. Now, if you take out the vacancies, that number goes even higher, and use the the smaller number of folks net of the vacant positions. But even with the vacancies filled, you're at this level, and that's at the high end of kind of overall productivity that we see in K-12 districts. Most schools that are striving for APA 2 are between 20 and let's say 24,000 cleanable square feet per FTE. From a quality standpoint, we did a very detailed quality inspection of all the schools. You scored an 82.1% out of a 100-point scale. Again, that APA 2 benchmark that most schools strive for on our quality system would be the upper 80s, kind of 87 to 89 is kind of the sweet spot of if you're kind of hitting right in the middle of that APA 2 desired range of quality. And you're scored an 82.1 is a little below that. The 2 top reasons for that, number one, you've shifted to more of a focus on disinfecting and cleaning for the invisible, whereas our quality audits focus more on the visible, what you can see. And so that was one reason for the lower scores. Another reason is likely tied to the staffing. If you're stretched a little thin with your productivity and your staffing, it sometimes can be a little more difficult to reach the quality levels that are also kind of in that generally accepted APA 2 range. And here's just one more look at quality. I know this is a little hard to read, but it shows that APA scale 1 through 5 along with our rating system of 1 through 100, shows your current score versus the goal would be to get to an 87 from an 82. As far as recommendations for improvement, I'm going to kind of just skip these 2 slides, but this just goes a little deeper into the quality. The only thing I'll mention from kind of a positive quality standpoint is that the biggest deficiency is dust. So 3/4 of everything that we found that was dirty in any building is dust. That's very favorable. Dust is literally the easiest deficiency to correct and the least expensive to correct. So even though the scores were a little lower than desired, the breakdown of deficiency shows that if you focus on dust, you can very rapidly improve your scores. Another good outcome is that your restrooms scored well, along with locker rooms in the main entrance. And those are 4 area types that you want to see scoring well. And those are some of your top scoring area types. You're very mature when it comes to supplies, equipment, and green cleaning. You have great supplies, very kind of high-end equipment, high productivity, efficient equipment that's eco-friendly. You have a very sophisticated chemical dispensing system, and the custodial closets are very well organized. And you're using one of the most favored brands of electrostatic spraying during the time of COVID. So from a supply and equipment and COVID compliance, from kind of meeting those cleaning for health needs, you're using all the best tools of the trade to do that. And that was a very good finding. And then just to wrap up here, the program improvement options, again, thinking about staffing, our workload did come in a little higher than your current staffing level, and that's with the vacancies filled. And then with disinfecting, it was even higher than that. So we would just encourage you to try to kind of maintain the highest staffing level that you can within your budget, because it's going to help you improve those quality levels and be more in line with how other districts are setting up their productivity and their staffing. And then just to kind of touch on some other things for improvement, involving administrators and supervisors in a quality control process, kind of standardizing that quality assurance to help drive up those appearance level scores, especially during times of COVID. better follow-up with maintenance work orders, investing in training, improving some of the equipment tracking, and then doing what we call a master plan. So a custodial master plan is kind of taking the best of everything I just mentioned, tracking your supplies and equipment, formalizing your spec, getting your arms around the current staffing level and what those custodians can be doing to best contribute to the health and safety of the students. The way you do that is you organize the department and you create these assignment sheets for each custodian. So an example of that would be a task sheet for each team member, showing them what microfiber cloths to use, what areas they clean, what tasks they do daily, what tasks they do weekly, what are their project tasks that they might only do once or twice a year, and just helping give the team the tools and investing in that department to really professionalize the department to even a higher level than it is today, by kind of really documenting and formalizing all the cleaning for health activities that would be happening. So that's the presentation. I realized I just took about 12 or 13 minutes instead of the 10, so I apologize for running a little bit long, but I really wanted to get through the material, and now we can go through any questions.
Anybody have any questions? I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment for Mr. Booth. Thank you for doing this, Mr. Booth. I know that you and I have had conversations about this a couple times, and it's good to see that we are using the best products that are available for our district and to keep our students and our staff safe at the same time. So I appreciate you doing this for us, and having those schedules is certainly going to be helpful for when we get back to a more regular time in our district. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, and thank you. And I think you can see later in the board meeting, we vote on doing these master plans, and you can see I think it's going to be extremely helpful to the district, especially with still going through the COVID world. And appreciate the treasurer giving me a chance to do this too. And thank the board also. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. We appreciate it. And,
Sure.
glad to see that we're doing a good job.
Yes, very much so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for having us, everybody.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Madam President, members of the board, our final presentation it will be with Dr. Ariana Howard. Dr. Ariana Howard is a graduate of the Mansfield City Schools, a graduate of Mansfield Senior High School. She is a master trainer and a leading cultural diversity expert. She possesses extensive educational experience and has effectively facilitated work with various school leaders, resulting in equitable teaching and learning environments. Dr. Howard is the president and CEO of Plant at Sea Educational Consulting. And I would like to state that she has been working in our school district on a number of presentations and workshops with our district leadership team in the areas of equity, trauma and stress response, and cultural competent teaching tips. So with that, I would like to turn this over to Dr. Howard for your presentation.
Thank you, Superintendent Jefferson, Madam President, and members of the board. I am going to go ahead and share my screen and jump right in. Yes. All right. So here is the plan for our 15 minutes together. I'm going to give a quick introduction, a little bit more of my background, and I'm going to invite you into a self-reflective moment. And I want to share with you our 2 rounds of training that we have had the opportunity to do thus far this school year. I will share some survey results and then wrap up the conversation with recommendations and next steps. So in addition to that warm welcome and introduction by Superintendent Jefferson, I wanted to share with you a little more of my educational background. As Superintendent Jefferson mentioned, I am a proud Tiger alum, proud product of Mansfield City Schools. After graduating high school, I came to Columbus, where I currently reside, and attended Ohio State, earning a bachelor's in human development, a master's of education in math and English, middle grades education, and a doctorate in literacy studies. And I have been in education ever since. I started out as a preschool teacher, went on into the public school system, serving as a middle school teacher, a guidance counselor, high school administrator. I then transitioned into the trauma field, working as both a coach and supervisor. I have supervised pre-service teachers. I've presented at national conferences. I am a published author. And as Superintendent Jefferson mentioned, I have had the opportunity to launch my consulting firm, Plant the Seed, in 2017. So I now want to invite those listening, those present at the board meeting, to a moment of self-reflection. So I'm going to read 5 statements. And I want you to ask yourself, how comfortable do I feel? And then rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5. Okay? So here's the first statement. Having conversations about the presence of microaggressions in the district with my colleagues during a meeting. How comfortable do you feel? Statement number 2, facilitating conversations about implicit bias in the district with my colleagues during a meeting. How comfortable do you feel? Statement number 3, saying or doing something when I witness injustice. How comfortable do you feel? Statement number 4, responding to an angry parent who accuses the district of not doing enough in the areas of equity, diversity, and inclusion. How comfortable do you feel? Last statement, responding to multiple complaints of white female teachers who report their Black principal as angry, unpleasant, and unapproachable. How comfortable do you feel? Thank you for those who leaned into that moment. And the reason I invited that moment of self-reflection is this. Who you are as a human is who you are as a professional. If I am sitting around the dinner table and I don't stand up and respond to a family member who may make homophobic or racist jokes, then I most likely will not stand up in my workplace when I experience those same moments. And so it is this paradigm that I entered into partnership with Mansfield City Schools to connect the person with the profession, to engage staff members in moments of deep self-reflection and how we can create safe learning spaces for children and adults. And so our first round of training happened late August of this school year. It was a 90-minute training with district leadership. And here are the topics that were addressed during that 90-minute conversation. Bias, oppression, privilege and microaggressions. We talked quickly about the history of equity and access in education. We touched on trauma and the stress response. And we talked about culturally competent teaching tips and strategies. And so at the end of that 90-minute conversation, building principals were invited to schedule building-specific trainings. And of the 12 programs, 8 programs signed up for that follow-up building specific training. And here are the programs that received that first round of training. Here are the topics that we addressed: bias and conditioning, equity, access, and systemic oppression, microaggressions, stereotypes and myths, oppression and privilege, strategies to cultivate safe, equitable environments, and trauma-informed, culturally competent workplaces. And so after that first round of training, I brought the survey results to the district leadership team, and we talked about what were next steps. It was at that moment that I shared with the DLT this idea or this concept of the thirds of culture change. And research shows that in any workplace, when we are trying to change the culture of that space, people tend to self-select into thirds, into three groups. That first group of people will follow you wherever you lead. On some level, they have already been doing the work and will gladly, under your guidance, continue that work. Then there are a third of people who they may be interested in the conversation, but not yet ready to take action. And so what they tend to do is sit back and watch the doers to see how it turns out. And if it turns out okay, then they may feel led into action. And then we have a third of people who might sit back and cross their arms and say, no, thank you. And as we lead this work, it is important for us to understand that these three groups of people can simultaneously exist, and we can differentiate our support to create the culture that we want. And so as per the recommendation of the DLT, that second round of training was again mandated district-wide. And of the 12 programs, 8 of those programs selected a second round of training. And so here we see the 2/3 of our culture deciding to engage in that next level conversation. And then there was a third who were ready to be the doers. I'll talk about them in just a second. They have continued work beyond the second round. We're engaging in this work as we speak. And so those are the 5 programs that have stepped out as leaders in this district as change agents. And so in that second round of training, we dove more deeply into the topics introduced in the first round. Participants were challenged to explore how their bias and microaggressions influence the student experience and contribute to building climate. And as anticipated, the survey results were more polarized than the first round. And this is because, again, we're diving more deeply and we're asking people to engage in deeper moments of self-reflection. And so at this point, we have trained about half of the entire staff of Mansfield City Schools. And I'd like to share with you some of the survey results. In terms of content, 75% of those who have trained with me agree that what I said I was going to talk about, I actually talked about. 72% of those participants rated themselves prior to the training average or below average in terms of their prior knowledge. As a result of the training, about 90% of participants reported an increase in their knowledge. And about 88% of those participants agree that I created a climate that was thought-provoking. And 7 out of 10 educators would recommend this content to a friend or colleague. Also a part of the survey are spaces for long form responses. And so here are some reflections. The first one says, thank you. This is possibly the most valuable PD I've had in 15 years of teaching. Another participant says, loved the non-judgmental, safe environment you gave us today to learn in. Another participant shares, prior to this training, I didn't appreciate the white privilege and racial injustice. And another participant shares, thank you so much. These sessions have been some of the best our district has offered. They have always told us, as white middle-class women, we can't really understand our clientele at MCS, but have never provided the PD to help us until the past few years with trauma training and now with your PD. So thanks again. And so generally speaking, this experience thus far has been one of self-reflection and deep learning. Also, as a part of our second round of training, at the request of Superintendent Jefferson, thank you for this, we were able to enter into a partnership with Ashland University and create a course for educators who might need extra credit hours to keep their license current or are just interested in deepening their knowledge. And so that class is currently happening, and we're excited to report that we do have representation from Mansfield City Schools in that course. So now earlier I mentioned that there are 5 of the 12 programs in the district who are interested in continuing the work beyond the second round of training. Prospect, Sherman, and Spring Mill STEM, shout out to those buildings, have decided to continue these all-staff conversations, and those will be happening this month and next. A super huge shout out to Mansfield Senior High. We are launching an in-depth topic study of culturally responsive teaching. We have about 20 staff members signed up for that topic study, which launches tomorrow. And then administration at the middle and high school have expressed interest in some focused workshops during the summer to help support them as they support their staff in creating equitable and diverse learning environments in their buildings. And so I want to wrap up today's conversation with some recommendations for next steps. There are 5 that I want to quickly review with the board. The first recommendation for next steps is administrative support, okay? Strengthening the leadership. You have leaders in your district who want to continue this work, but they're unsure how. They may struggle to support resistant staff. They may struggle to effectively handle touchy or uncomfortable conversations. And so one area of support could be through some focused workshop and coaching opportunities. The second recommendation for next steps includes communication. As we continue this initiative and continue this partnership, clear and consistent communication at all levels is critical for lasting systemic change. This work is tough. It challenges our belief systems. And it's so important for us to clearly and consistently articulate the message within the district and in the larger community about why we are leading this initiative and the plans we have for years to come. And so here are 2 questions I invite the district to consider in terms of communication. What is the purpose of this initiative? How does our partnership accomplish this purpose? The third recommendation for next step refers to the climate, okay? Supporting those staff members in the district who are change agents. You have some powerful leaders and some powerful staff members in this district who have been doing this work, who want to continue the work, who want to deepen their understanding. And so how do we create the climate of support for them to move forward and to create the climate that they want? How do we support them when they meet resistance? How can the district office personnel gain the knowledge and tools to recognize and respond to resistance? So when staff members, when family members report resistance, how do we support those leaders in keeping moving forward? Second to last recommendation has to do with student voice. And we know this, right? Research indicates that students who believe they have a voice are 7 times more likely to be academically motivated. Student voice gives us unique insight into building culture and climate. And so as we continue this partnership next year, how can we capture student voice? How can we ensure that all types of student voice are included? And how can we take up those results in tangible, practical ways? My last recommendation deals with accountability and ambassadors, all right? We want to keep this moving forward. And for those programs, for that third of people who may sit back and cross their arms and say no thank you, how can we keep accountability in those spaces? And so I invite the board, I invite the district office to consider the following questions. What is the baseline of accountability for ED&I work in those spaces that may not desire to continue the partnership with me? How can we help those spaces see the value of this work? Ambassadors are a critical component of systemic culture change. Okay? And small group work, like the work we're doing at senior high, provides the opportunity for our change agents and our ambassadors to gain tools to actualize these concepts and strategies to inspire their resistant colleagues, create that climate of safety for everyone in the building. So as you think about these 5 steps, these 5 recommendations for continuing this work, I want to gift the board 2 free hours of my time. I'm happy to provide some training, provide some coaching and consultation to help you all think about ways that you all can support this initiative, communicate this initiative, and keep the movement going. I also want to gift you my resource list. I will share a link with you all at the conclusion of today's meeting. I have been working on this resource list for the past 2 years. As you can see, here is a key that denotes the different types of texts. And you will see that there are headings that tease out the resources. There are 14 pages of videos, articles, books. Okay, again, vetted by me to make sure that they are informed, that they are easy to access with practical strategies for educators. Educators who take advantage of that resource list, they report back to me that it is quite comprehensive and very helpful. And so I want to offer that resource list to you, the board, as you support this very important initiative. And so I close with, again, an ask that the board consider what role you all can play in moving these next steps, in maintaining the initiative, in communicating this work within the district and within the community. I conclude with a simple statement, which I share with anyone I come into contact with, and that is to be the change you want to see. As we stand on the front lines of educating this next generation of youth, now more than ever, it's time for us to connect the personal and the professional. Stand up to resistance with love and with knowledge. Thank you for your time. Any questions for me?
I thank you for your work that you've done. I think, thanks Stan for bringing her in. I think that our teachers and our students are going to be highly rewarded by our teaching staff providing this training. I think we do need to keep going because I think if we stop, it will go back to where we were. So I think we, as the board, need to continue looking at where we are and where you can take us. I think that the benefit is more than Mansfield Senior High School. It's Mansfield City. So I think we need to keep going.
Do you see a difference? It seems like the ones that want to continue are more at the elementary level. Do you see a difference between the different levels, like the elementary, middle, and high school in their willingness to do this?
I do see a difference. I see the teachers leading the work more at the elementary level, and I see the leaders leading the work more at the middle and high school level. But there are certainly educators at every level who are wanting to continue this work. I think we can just work to create that climate again for them to feel supported enough to stand up and to stand out.
Thank you.
So I guess my charge to our peers and our entire district would be, why wouldn't we want to support positive change for all students? Because as educators, we're teaching global learners, you're teaching all children, and you are teaching the future who is going to go out and encounter many different people, a diverse world. So it would behoove them to be educated on diversity, equity, and inclusion, because it's diverse simply because somebody different showed up. Equity is a different conversation. Equity is making sure that everybody has all of the tools to be successful, not just all of the tools, but all of the tools that they need to be successful. And inclusion means that you make sure that they get on that right path, and you make sure that there are not barriers in their way. And Dr. Howard, I thank you for coming back to the district. I appreciate your heart for the district. And Dr. Jefferson, I thank you for bringing Dr. Howard back. I've gone to some of your workshops and I've enjoyed them tremendously. You're an excellent champion for our community, and I would strongly encourage everyone in our district who cares about the students in our district first and foremost, and cares about Mansfield and cares about our students who are going to be global leaders. That's what we're challenging our students to do. And I would strongly encourage for all of our educators, everyone, to get on board with making this a safe space for children to learn and grow, but also a safe space for our adults to continue to learn and to continue to grow. You don't lose anything by gaining knowledge. So it's not going to harm you to learn something different and learn about other cultures and be more sensitive and understand how your students receive information. It's very difficult to learn in environments where you don't feel like you're seen, heard, or appreciated. And that's for adults as well as children. We all want to be in a safe place, and that is actually one of the goals of our superintendent, was creating a change in our climate and the culture in this district. So I thank you for moving the mark. I thank you for making sure that we're getting to where we need to be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Howard.
Any other questions? Or?
No, excellent presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much
Thank you.
for doing your presentation to us this evening. Great. We have any board member comments?
I would like to share it.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm asking our board to make sure that we get out into our community and talk with our constituents, make sure that we're talking to our neighbors in understanding that we need to support a fair school funding plan, and that is House Bill number 1. So if most people have been following, I've shared with the board the previous plans that were never ever actually put into place. And we want to make sure that our state representatives are aware that this is something that we support, that we need for our school districts. So we're talking about educating our educators on fairness and equity, and we need that for our school districts as well. And our district has definitely been under attack, as well as other districts have been under attack. And public education has been under attack. So we want to make sure that we have the support of the Fair School Funding Plan. And our senator is Senator Mark Romanchuk, and we're in District 22. And I will make sure that everyone has his information available. We'll have his number and his email address, and I'm asking that you contact him and let him know that we want to have fair school funding for our district. And I'm going to ask that our board consider passing a resolution in support of House Bill number 1.
Can you send us some information?
Absolutely, yes, I have copies for
Thank you.
yeah, I have copies for everyone. And I'll send it to you by email as well. Thank you. You're welcome.
I wanted to take a minute to thank Andrea, Lauren, and Stan, and all the people that work on the safety committee for helping Coach Bradley get the mulch sale off the ground. It was a long process, and Kevin. It took us a couple of months, but with their help and guidance, it was able to get it going. So we mailed out well over 1,000 mulch sale flyers. It's the football team's largest fundraiser. They're trying to raise money to get new uniforms next year. I have one if anybody wants to buy mulch. And then I also wanted to thank Stan and Kevin for coming to Booster meeting last night. And I think every coach was there but one. Every varsity coach was there but one. And they got a chance to see the bingo hall and how bingo works. And I'm glad to report Stan had texted me before I came that this is their biggest night of bingo. They've had the most people there tonight that they've had. So it's starting to grow.
Good.
So it was good to have you there talking to coaches and give them positive feedback and guidance for the fall. I think in our review, they're appreciative of that.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Do we have any public participation?
No, we do not.
Okay. And we will go on to the Neola quarterly board policy updates and revisions. This is the second reading and for the approvals. I hope everyone has had a chance to read them. Basically, there was word changing. Most of it is what occurred in all of these. Just revising words. I don't really think there was much of change in any of them other than the wording and possibly some new additions. Anybody have any questions or concerns? Brenda, would you say that was? Yes, that yes, was-
The language changes just
Right.
to make it more appropriate.
Right. Okay, could I have a motion to accept the new Neola quarterly board policy updates and revisions?
I move that we approve the quarterly Neola policy updates.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All right, thank you. Ms. Cartwright, could you call the vote?
Yes.
Ms. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Fagan?
Yes.
Mrs. Golden?
Yes.
Mrs. Weber?
Yes.
That moves, so all of the new policy board updates for Neola are passed. Thank you. Superintendent Jefferson?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. On the superintendent report, I would like to discuss for a short minute our learning plan as we go forward through the fourth 9 weeks towards the end of the school year. You will see in front of you our calendar. This calendar has our learning plan from starting from March 29th. So if we go back, starting from today until March 26th, we will maintain our 4x1 plan, with Wednesday being a remote day for in-person learning. Effectively, as of March 29th, all in-person students, as well as our TDA students, as you can see, will be in school, will have instruction, I should say, in person or online platform for the TDA from the 29th of March through April the 1st. On April the 2nd is Good Friday, and our spring break begins, and then we will come back to school on April the 12th. At that point, from April the 12th to the end of the school year, we will have 5 days of instruction for those students who are, whether they are in person or if they are Tiger Digital Academy students, we will have 5 days of instruction. I do want to go back to March 31st, which you see as a Wednesday. That is a in-person day for the in-person students. So normally Wednesday has been a remote day for us, but we will be in school in person for that day. I also would like to take this time to thank Mid-Ohio ESC for, we had the high response of staff that was part of the second vaccine. And once again, I want to thank Mid-Ohio for that. That has allowed us now, as we move forward for the fourth grading term, and as we move towards the activities that occurred in the spring, such as class days and graduation and so forth, we want to be able to provide those opportunities. And of course, we will continue to follow our safety team led by Andrea Moyer and our consultants, with Sandy Hopus and Lauren Yeagle, to continue to follow the process of the things that we can do for the fourth term. And we will keep the board and our community informed on the various events that we traditionally know of for the spring, the final 9 weeks of spring. So my report is concerning our learning plan. I want to thank our teaching staff. I'd like to thank all of our support staff since the time we started school on September the 8th. And as we have progressed from the 2-1-2 plan to the 4-1 plan to now, and as of March 29th, an everyday plan, a 5-day plan. I also want to thank our Tiger Nation, our community, for working with the district as we have went through the various educational plans because of COVID-19. So I just want to thank all staff that's been involved, and of course our community for their perseverance and their patience as we have worked through this matter for this academic school year. This has been a very challenging school year for students, for families, and for staff.
Well, thank you. I'd like to thank you and Ms. Moyer and Mr. Rizzo, Mr. Wilczek, and all of your staff here, and the teachers for starting last year when we knew we were going to be closed for the entire rest of the year, of not waiting until the summer, but starting like in April to decide how we were going to come back to school. So that made a difference. You began to inform the community. This is what we're looking at, and I think that made the biggest difference. So thank you.
Thank you. And one last thing I forgot, you'll see that you have some postcards that have went out. We have mailed pre-K, K, as well as high school postcards out throughout the district as we are going and getting ready for registration also. So that has went out to our community. And so I just wanted this to point that out as well.
Very nice.
Really quality.
I know, looks very nice. Hopefully people will see that and want to come. All right, we have treasurer's report. Ms. Corright, if you'd like to speak to letter A.
Yes, thank you.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, President of the Board. I do have a treasurer's report for you tonight. In the packet you received where we are standing in our finances. We are working hard in getting through this COVID year as well. In the finance area, we received ESSER funds at the beginning of the school year over the summer. Those funds, we have spent nearly 70% of the funds that we received. We need to spend those by receipt and report on those by September 30th, 21. We are working very diligently to get those spent out, which will not be an issue. Unfortunately, the need is greater than some of the funding, but we are working hard to make sure we use those to the best of our ability. Recently, this early spring, we received ESSER 2 funding. We will receive approximately $7.2 million. Those funds, again, will go very quickly. We will be using those funds primarily for additional technology for our students and staff. We are going to be able to work on our air purification in both our buildings. And we will be using these funds to support students and staff in the fall and late spring here to do additional intervention and social emotional support for our students. As we've been told that we have ESSER 3 coming with the recent passage of the stimulus under Biden. We have not seen those funds come directly to us yet. They say they'll come soon. Some say that we'll spend them next year. So I would say late summer, early October, late fall, we should have a better idea of what those funds look like and what those fundings would look like and how we'll be able to spend those. So those will help out the district tremendously. In the packet, it shows the athletic fund is running at a deficit, currently about $45,000 in the red. We will make sure that that is taken care of with stimulus money, so we can use that to help offset that. Most of that is directly affected by the number of staff and families that could come and watch their children and the athletes in their activities. In the last 3 years, I did look back, those have not been in a deficit issue. That fund has been self-sustaining. I would say as an average over the last 3 years, they've had at least on average about $8,500 to start their year off. So this is a year of unprecedented issues. And I'm working diligently on our May forecast. I should have that for us in May for our May meeting. As I get closer to that, I will have some information to pass on to you as that gets finalized. We have two gifts to the district for this month. We received $26,000 in donations from the Mansfield Fire Department Rec Club to be used for educational purposes. And we received $50 from Gary Fagan from the insurance company towards the wellness rewards for staff at Malabar Intermediate School. And we thank them very much for those. Item D is a resolution to accept the amounts and rates determined by the Richland County Commissioner for our tax rates. And that is attached in the packet. And I just want to talk about a couple things on there. Bond retirement fund is the first item on there, and that is our money to pay for buildings that we have voted millage to pay for. The amount on there is 1.5 mils. That is less than what we had voted in back in the early 2000s when we built the new high school. That we had voted 4.14 mils, and those 3.7 mils will expire next calendar year. We are collecting at 1.5 mils because we did some refunding of these bonds over the summer and have been able to save the district money on the high school that we have built. So that will be paid for by the end of the calendar year next year, which is what the plan would have been for. So after next year, we should have a savings to the district and our taxpayers on that amount. So I'm working very closely with the county auditor to determine what those look like for our projection for next year. And that's a wonderful thing. The general fund bonds that are, the millage that is out there that's approved for the 1.75. I just wanted to note that 65% of these mills are continuing mills that were pre-1976. So that is, 65% of the money that we have out there that we're collecting on has been out there for a long time. So since 1976, 35% of our time we've asked for additional funding for that. Permanent improvement, fantastic. We have received 3 mills on that. That will generate approximately $950,000, and that is just for maintenance of buildings, roofs, pavement, not any operating of inside the buildings. That is merely maintaining the buildings themselves. The classroom facilities was part of when we built the new high school. That money will be collected until 2027, and that was voted at $0.5 mil, and we will continue collecting that, and that does help the high school maintain that facility when we built that. The last two are emergency levies that we passed. Those ones will expire in tax year 24 and 22, and those will collect, let me say it the other way, in 22 and 24, and will be collected in 23 and 25. Sounds a little easier. And both of those are approximately 9.5 mils. Okay. That ends that one.
Anything else? Do you have any questions? No, not a question, but a comment. On our board minutes, we have to change the top of them, as they say January 19th across the top. And that last one should be February, and the one before that should be
On the upload?
yes, on the top. So you see the records of proceedings, that first line. And I think that's the only thing that we need to do an adjustment to. Fix that. But that's on this one and the last one.
thank you for those updates. That's good news about those things that are going to come off next year.
Yes.
Very good.
Very good.
Any other changes? Do you see any changes to the minutes? Anyone? Great.
Then can I have a motion to approve the board meeting minutes from February 16th, 2021?
So moved.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Ms. Cartwright, could you take the vote, please?
Yes. Mr. Fagan?
Yes.
Ms. Klein?
Yes.
Mrs. Golden?
Yes.
Mrs. Weber?
Yes.
Then could I have a motion to approve the resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor. Also for the approval of the February financial reports and gifts to the district.
So moved.
Thank you. I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Ms. Cartwright, could you take the vote?
Mrs. Golden?
Yes.
Ms. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Fagan?
Yes.
Mrs. Weber?
Yes. That motion moves. Business contracts. Superintendent SelfReflection. And I missed
Those would be-
We got frontline first.
Item D, included.
Well, first you got B for frontline.
Okay, we haven't voted on that yet. That comes under business contracts.
Right. So she's going to tell us about them and then.
Yeah,
we'll-
we're gonna talk about it.
I'm sorry. Never mind.
That is okay.
I thought you were asking about.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
Wait a minute, we haven't even talked about that yet. Go ahead.
Frontline education, that is a contract that we use here at the district for our employment and application process. This will be a one-year contract with Frontline for the next school year.
Is this the same company that the teacher absences in?
Yes.
Substitute, okay.
Yeah.
They work with ASAP.
Yeah.
And item C, we have for our Arlen Field fencing contract. We're working with a company in Cleveland. They gave us the best price that we could find. And that will be for the fencing that will go around the football field. That is outside the 1.7 million that we have funded for our field project in high school. That's part of the money that we have set aside out of the Arlen Field money that we've been setting aside for the field itself. Core Management Services, we have a contract with them to do some professional development. And that was included in the packet. And then we do have the construction agreement for Arlen Field with PlugSmart and Dynamics. This will be the final documentation that we need to enter into our contracts so that they can begin work. We're working closely with PlugSmart to determine about the grant timeline, because that is still in the works, and we should know more about that in the next couple of weeks where we stand on that. Item F is a Ohio School Council Cooperative Purchasing Program. Because we are doing some HVAC work with Gardner, they are allowing us to be part of this cooperative, which you typically have to pay on a per capita basis. But we will be able to get that with them free of charge. It probably lasts about 15 months. We'll be able to use that for the HVAC work. I know we are looking to replace AEDs in the district. They have a long list of COVID materials, services that we can work with them to get better pricing for. So on that one, we will need to pass a resolution to enter into that.
Anyone have any questions over any of these?
Two, on the Arlen Field fencing, when are they anticipated start on that? Will that be done after Arlen Field is done and then, or at the same time? The fencing.
After we approve this tonight, and then Tacey and I will work on with the money, we have to order materials. It's 8 to 10 weeks out to get the fencing. We'd like to get the fencing up along Trimble. We're going to start at the bridge close to Kingwood Center and then come up all the way around. And it's the same fence, Gary, that they have, the aluminum, and by the same company. So it will look the same coming up Trimble. So we'd like to get that done before they would actually be done at Arlen Field, but we all have to work together, you know, with the lighting, the concrete work, the fencing. It's all going to work together.
Okay, thank you. And I think what's the question? Okay, I forgot my other question.
Bob, are the yellow gates, are the yellow gates staying up, or are they coming, is that being replaced?
I would like to replace them this summer. That's my goal. And one thing on the gates, Linda and board, I want to tell you, you know how we have the swinging gates. Now on Trimble Road, we'll have the big swinging gate. The gates going into the stadium, right in front of the concession stand. If you look at the ones as you go by Kingwood Center that have the big high arches, that's what that's going to look like. It's going to be gorgeous.
Oh.
And then also by the ticket booths, instead of getting swingers, we're going to do sliders where they'll roll. So easy access, easy opening, easy shutting, and going to look really nice. I'm really excited.
The yellow gate at the top of the hill is hard to open.
Yeah, we would like to, and also a little bit of that, I'm also looking at possibly some asphalt at the top of that hill coming down to the building to clean that up and then replace that gate.
Well, that would be nice.
And the one at the bottom of the hill too.
Thanks, Bob.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay. Then I have a motion to accept the business contracts B, C, D, E, F, and G.
I think F and G, I have to separate, I am sorry, yeah, those are kind of different than all.
Then can we do B through F on one? Or does F and G all have to be separate?
Yeah, so I think we need C, D, and E.
I move for B, D, and E.
Okay, thank you. Who takes the vote, Ms. Courtwright?
Yes. Mrs. Golden?
Yes.
Ms. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Fagan?
Yes.
Mrs. Weber?
Yes. So contracts B, C, D, and E pass. Now, I have a motion for the resolution to participate in the Ohio Schools Council Cooperative Purchasing Program.
Second.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Yes. I second. I'm sorry.
As far as you needed to.
Yeah.
Mrs. Golden?
Yes.
Mr. Fagan?
Yes.
Mrs. Weber?
Yes.
Ms. Klein?
All right, that moves for us to participate in the Ohio Schools Council Cooperative Purchasing Program. I need a motion for the resolution to approve the purchase under COG contract with Gardner HVAC improvements and upgrades. I'll move. Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second. Go ahead, Gary.
Thank you. Ms. Cartwright, please take the vote.
Ms. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Fagan?
Yes.
Mrs. Golden?
Yes.
Mrs. Weber?
Yes. So that resolution passes. Now, Superintendent Jefferson.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, we have 3 contracts under the superintendent recommendation for contracts. The first one is dealing with UMADOC, our food delivery contract. Our first contract is the revised contract. This is the revised contract with UMADOC for food delivery to our Tiger Digital Academy students. The contract begins January of 2021 and runs through May of 2021. The other 2 contracts that we have, C and D, these next agreements are through our special education department, and I would like for Mr. John Rivers to speak to those.
Hi, good evening again. A couple of simple contracts. The first is for psychological services through Mansfield Psychological Associates. They are stepping in to take evaluations for us, individual, based on 2 of our school psychologists who were on leave for FMLA. So we refer them evaluation at a rate per evaluation. And for any of that amount that we do not use, it's capped at 30,000. We will get a reimbursement at the end of the year. The second is two contracts with Catalyst Life Services for ASL services. One is for a part-time interpreter. We have posted for an interpreter twice internally. I have not found one, so this is a patch for the remainder of the school year for a kiddo who needs ASL services at senior high, and then for another kiddo who's going to just start learning ASL with his family. And so those are my contracts.
Anyone have any questions on any of these? Okay. I have a motion to accept the UMADOC food delivery contract with psychology services and the MOUs with Catalyst Life for ASL and sign language interpretive services.
I'll move.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Cartwright, can you take the vote?
Ms. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Fagan?
Yes.
Mrs. Golden? Yes. Mrs. Weber?
Yes. So those 3 pass. Superintendent Jefferson, have your recommended personnel actions?
Yes, we have several retirements this month, with most becoming effective the first week of June and a couple in August. We plan to celebrate all our retirees at the end of the school year. We also have our spring sports supplementals and our usual non-renewals of limited contracts, certified supplementals and substitutes, a process that occurs every year at this time. Also, our addendum includes a resignation that we just received just yesterday.
Anyone have any questions over any of these? I please have a motion to accept the superintendent's recommendations on the personnel actions.
So moved.
Have a second, please?
I'll second.
Thank you. Ms. Cartwright, can you take the vote?
Yes. Mrs. Golden? Yes. Ms. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Fagan?
Yes.
Mrs. Weber?
Yes, and that moves. Need a motion for a resolution to enter into executive session to consider the employment, dismissal, or discipline of a public employee or official. I'll have a motion, please.
I'll move.
Thank you. I have a second.
Second.
Ms. Cartwright, could you take the vote?
Ms. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Fagan?
Yes.
Mrs. Golden? Yes. Mrs. Weber?
Yes. We are now in executive session. It is 7 o'clock.
We are out of executive session. The time is 8:04. Do I have a motion to adjourn for the evening?
With that, we adjourn this evening.
Have a second?
Second.
Ms. Cartwright, can you please take the vote?
Ms. Klein,
Yes.
Mr. Fagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Golden,
Yes.
Mrs. Weber.
Yes.